Oh, Suze, listen.
I'm sure I saw something and it's big.
Okay, so what did you see?
I don't know. There. There, look.
Okay, I confess. I've got a thing for shark movies. There, I said it. It's not something I'm particularly proud of or like to tell people, but each time a new shark film, appears on Netflix, I find myself clicking on it, even in the knowledge it's probably going to be bad. Sharks, their threat, what they represent, obviously lurk somewhere deep down in my psyche and perhaps everyone's. Sharks are the ultimate symbol of death, the knowledge that it's coming for us. It's inescapable, possibly violent, probably sudden, and of course, as well as a dozen jump scares, shark movies often supply us that sweetest of lies, the figure of the lone survivor, the hero or heroine who looks death straight in its unthinking primordial eye and says, "Not today." But what makes a good shark film? For me, it's an appreciation of two things and an understanding of how they best work together. The first is spatial awareness, by which I mean the way a director sells us on the vastness of the ocean, drops us right there as an audience in the danger zone, then tortures us with various distances from our protagonist to the shore or the jetty. The agony of fingertips brushing safety, the approaching fin slicing under the water only 10 metres away. The second's a metaphorical extension of the first idea. A good shark film needs control over emotional distance, meaning the emotional space its characters are placed in and how they pull together or drift apart in times of duress. For a shark film to be truly great, it needs to marry these two ideas, and very few can. Jaws remains the apex predator of the genre and is probably unbeatable. I read Peter Benchley's novel as a kid before I got to see Spielberg's film, and it's actually quite a different beast, focusing to a large extent on a different kind of shark from the one found in the water. The book's more interested generally in the shady interests that run the seaside town of Amity, the struggle for power between the police, the mayor, local business operators and the mafia who glide menacingly in the background, forcing Brody to keep the beaches open, the tourist revenue rolling in, and the real estate prices stable. It's also a book about the marital space, exploring in a subplot completely excised by Spielberg an affair between Ellen, Brody's wife, and the marine biologist Hooper. The book is a success largely because it chooses to focus on the emotional distance in the family at its heart. Spielberg's adaptation was wise in realising it could build greater cinematic tension by focusing largely on other kinds of tension. He often uses his camera as the shark's POV, mimicking its movement, showing us again and again the shark's eerie approach and how immobile and defenceless its victims are rendered by comparison. Then there's John Williams' famous theme that also plays with distance. As the tempo increases and the gaps between each note get smaller, the drama escalates and we all know how it ends, usually with the sudden attack, the thrashing of legs, the strangled scream and the pale blood plume. The film does this brilliantly, but Spielberg makes sure not to neglect other types of distance as well. The film's most famous shot, that brilliant dolly zoom on Brody's face, is great precisely because it visualises the mental crisis he's in as he questions the gap between what he thinks he's seeing and what his overworked, stressed out mind might be making up. The shot brings that gap to the fore and places us right there in the thick of Brody's doubt and astonishment. Another film to achieve a good balance between real and emotional distance was Open Water, the first one, its sequels being essentially reruns. As the name suggests, Open Water casts the ocean, its size and its inhumanity as its lead character, then dumps a couple of hapless divers in its midst and waits for the inevitable to happen. As in all shark films, the characters Daniel and Susan are always calculating how far they are from safety, and the scene at night in the storm is truly terrifying, adding the confusion of darkness to an already horrific situation. Open Water is an effective portrayal of a relationship falling apart, and also a reminder of how quickly our identities are lost when we're removed from the spaces we usually inhabit. Until their gear is found on the diving boat that marooned them, Daniel and Susan are essentially erased, placed in a non-space and left to squabble and doubt each other, with the sharks gathering below, eventually erasing either one or both of them completely. So many shark films fail to create characters we actually care about, that we're invested in. There's an argument to be made that Spielberg achieved this in Jaws by making it the story of Amity and her population rather than a story of a big fish with really big teeth. Only it's clear he managed to do both. The Shadows is a pretty decent addition to the genre, particularly in its spatial awareness and acute understanding of the need to sell this awareness to the audience. It's right there in the title again, although in reality the sea in The Shallows is exactly as shallow or as deep as the director needs it to be at any given time. But it's always there, that awareness throughout the film, the camera constantly overhead mapping the bay, Blake Lively's character constantly calculating the distance to shore or to a rocky outcrop, from the outcrop to a buoy, from a buoy to the rotting carcass of a whale her relentless shark foe is circling. The film makes a valiant effort to do more than just action. The bay the Blake Lively character Nancy visits is isolated and she's alone, foreshadowing her crisis by placing her in an already threatening position. The filmmakers also try to give us emotional distance, not easy given that Nancy's pretty much completely alone for the entire movie. We learn the beach in question is one her recently deceased mother visited while she was pregnant with Nancy, and in a phone call to her sister that she's become emotionally estranged from her father in the aftermath of her mother's death. None of it really sticks, unfortunately, but it was worth including since no amount of action can stand in for these human moments, and Nancy's on-off relationship with a seagull doesn't really count. It's a real shame The Shallows ends in such an annoying way. If I was a shark, I'd be mortally offended by the use of the move towards something sharp and pointy at speed then suddenly dart out of the way cliche, because I guarantee you no shark in the history of sharks or the history of sharks chasing down and eating stupid but delicious humans has ever, and I mean ever, died in that way. I think it's safe to say that shark movies are here to stay, and I for one am very glad, because for every dozen or so that misunderstands the genre, that aims for cheap laughs or jump scares and lashings of gore or bad CGI, there's bound to be a shark movie made every now and then that finds a new way to explore in its many facets the theme of distance, and to terrorise our imaginations in doing so. Hi, you just watched my first ever video essay. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the Earth to Submission channel, where I'll be posting weekly about movies, music, art, video games. So if that's your bag, please subscribe. I'm Phil Nash, and hopefully see you soon.